Good evening and welcome to another edition of the Magpie Circle. I hope those of you that either arrived at Grimsby or were at various motorway service stations from the wilds of Lincolnshire back to Ollerton and Nottingham have successfully thawed out and you are back safely in Nottingham. Now, that would have been the main talking point on the agenda tonight, and we will certainly be talking about not just the postponement at Grimsby, but our fans being ripped off. Should clubs be made by the Football League to disclose more independent and transparent information and not have meaningless, or not meaningless, but quite ridiculous late inspections? At Notts, it was about 100 minutes before the game that the match was called off. Wimbledon called off their game against Cheltenham 2 hours before kickoff. Not much chance of getting from Cheltenham to Wimbledon, I wouldn't suggest. So this is something perhaps nationwide, as much as it is just affecting Notts fans, football fans in general. We'll discuss that. But top of the show tonight, lots of incomings, literally in the closing minutes before the start of the show. Charlie Whittaker has come in from Everton on a 6-month contract, or at least that's what Chloe's told me, because she's the wizard of us three when it comes to the social media. The club have just announced that. We also had another incoming earlier today, Zach Johnson on loan for the rest of the season as cover for the two long-term injury issues that affected Lucas Ness. I keep wanting to call him Elliot Ness, but the Untouchables. But Lucas Ness and Lou Macari both effectively out for the rest of the season. Your thoughts on that? There are other potential incomings as well, and also, and I have to take this with a bit of a pinch of salt, but there's an awful lot of people rung me, the possible, and I would stress this is possible, departure of Dan Crowley up the A60, but that I don't know any more than it's a possible. Right, busy show tonight. Glad to have Chloe back alongside myself and Stell. Chloe, if you've not been around for a while, just talk us through your Saturday morning en route to Grimsby, because you came a bit further than most of us, didn't you?
Just a little bit. So I'm in Manchester at the moment, so bit of an early start. So obviously, like us all, we've all had our doubts, should we say, about this game being on all week, especially with it being a 12:30 kickoff. I don't think we've seen temperatures above 0 all week long. But anyway, we've been updated as the week's gone on. Everybody's happy. Game's going to be on, no doubts. We're on Sky Plus. There's a tweet that goes out about 9:30. So I think just before I left, saying the frost covers have worked. They've done their job. Game on. Off we go, trudging down the motorway. And I got about half an hour away. And you gave me a ring, Paul, and said,
"Yeah,
how far away are you? Is there any chance of turning around in the next 5 minutes? I'll give you a ring when it's official." But the rumours are, and I think a tweet had gone out to say, I think by about 10:30, that actually we're having a pitch inspection, and it's never a good sign, is it? Just over an hour before kickoff at 12:30, when we've not seen, like I say, temperature above 0. And then lo and behold, not too long later, 15 minutes away from Grimsby, game's off, and no one seems to be too surprised, especially obviously with Notts' tweet coming before Grimsby's, which is always funny as well. So ended up thinking, oh well, we're here anyway. It was 10 minutes away. Gave my granddad a ring, who came up from Nottingham, and we had a KFC and 4-hour round trip, and then went back home again.
Yeah, I mean, look, we afford ourselves a wry smile, Stout. But and I want this to be not just about Notts County here, and not just about Grimsby. I've given an example of Cheltenham, Wimbledon. Are we taking fans for a ride here? You made the very salient point that if the heavens open and there's 3 inches of rain on a Saturday morning and the pitch has been fine on a Friday, or suddenly the temperatures go down on a Saturday morning, that's fine. But this is something we've all known. It's been a ridiculously cold snap all week. Neither Wimbledon nor Grimsby at any point use that word pitch inspection. anywhere in their communication. And there was a presentation of the information as if there's absolutely no issue here. We're going to be fine.
Yeah, I mean, we're here again. It feels like, doesn't it? I mean, it say beggars belief, but I know we've been hit with the filed cancellations in recent years, the Dover postponement, and probably one or two others that have been slightly less painful than them trips. But it does. I mean, the big thing for me about this one is it's barely got above freezing all week. All over the country. You look at a fixture list. This is retrospectively, but look at the fixture list for the weekend for Saturday. It was decimated. Games off, more games off than games on. And it wasn't because there was a sudden cold snap on Friday night. We all knew this was a potential, shall we say, with the weather that we'd had in this country the previous week. So, and again, I don't want this to be my anger, if you like, or frustration is not necessarily with Grimsby, certainly not with their ground staff or anything like that. I think their media team could do with one or two lessons in PR and public relations, what they're tweeting out. But this is it happens so often. You mentioned about Wimbledon, Cheltenham for an impartial game, if you like. Why is there not a protocol in place? Maybe there is, and it just isn't really adhered to. It isn't held. Why isn't there a protocol in place that takes into account how far fans are travelling? And of course, that's predominantly away fans. And people might say, well, Notts to Grimsby's not a million miles. But, Grimsby will have fans that travel, throughout the country to see them, just like Notts do for a home game, But predominantly, what good is a 10:30 pitch inspection for a 12:30 kickoff? For anything but a local derby, everybody's gone, everybody's made their arrangements, everybody's set off. It's ridiculous. So why is there not, in the depths of winter, when we've had a minus temperature week all week in the build up to the games, why is there no protocol that says the referee or a fourth official or somebody who's officiating the game has to get there on the Friday night, the night before the game, inspect the pitch, see whether it's playable or not, have a look at the future forecast. I don't think Grimsby was scheduled to be 25 degrees in the shade Friday night, Saturday morning. So I don't think things would have changed overnight. And again, early in the morning to take account for the fans, the thousands of fans that are going to travel, or hundreds, over 1,000 fans that are traveling. As I said, inconvenience one or two people to save the inconvenience and cost of 1,000 or more. I.e., make the match official get there early, get there the night before. They're well paid to do their job. That this has got to be protocol from the Football League and set down and mandated. That's the only way I can see it happening. And you need it to be independent, because we all know that, if you need a game calling off, you can get a game called off if you need it to be. So that's something we'll probably come on to, of course. But it was frustrating, particularly frustrating, I think, Saturday, because all week I think everybody sort of had in the back of their minds, when are they actually going to call this off? It's not going to happen. It's been minus every night. It's not got above freezing barely any day of the week. When are we going to get the call? And everything, as Chloe said, everything up until 9:30 Saturday morning indicated that the game was going ahead. The game was going ahead, and people would travel with confidence that the game was going ahead. To lo and behold, an hour later, pitch inspection, 10 minutes later, the game off. And it's not good enough.
Yeah, here's the facts, because obviously I've been doing a bit of due diligence and what actually happened. Okay, so at no point during this week leading up to the game were Notts given any indication by Grimsby that the match was in any way, shape or form in doubt. The pitch covers were out. The pitch covers were doing their job. The pitch was fine. Notts travelled up overnight, as they would for most games. Not all. Grimsby's probably on the cusp, isn't it? Hour and a half, something like that. So Notts travelled up on Friday to stay overnight. There was a bit of snow apparently outside the team hotel on the Friday night, Saturday. But at no point is there information from Grimsby to Notts to say, well, hang on, if it's really cold tonight, we might be in a bit of trouble or anything. Notts poll up round about that sort of 10:30 time to the game. Still no indication. The referee's arrived as planned at his normal time. It's not been indicated to him he needs to get there early at 7 in the morning. There's been no messaging coming from Grimsby on Friday to say there's a bit of an issue, we perhaps need to get you in earlier, or to get a local ref in. The referee's arrived. He's asked for the pitch covers to be taken off the pitch because most of them are still on the pitch. He's instantly very concerned, and within a matter of minutes has called the game off. So this wasn't something an hour and a half or something, and they're looking at it 2 or 3 times, and Grimsby are keeping it quiet. The referee has made a very quick decision based on what he's seen of the pitch. Okay. A lot of people are blaming Sky. A lot of people have spoken about the option for a 3 o'clock. Because Grimsby, to an extent, had not indicated to anybody that there was ever a chance the game would not kick off as planned at 12:30. Logistically, it's not possible in preparations of players and all of that to put the kickoff back by 3 to 4.5 hours. And my understanding is, certainly from the Notts contingent, that game would not have been played at 3 o'clock either. It's all very well saying the sun is out, but as you would know, Stell, you only need a proportion of a pitch where there's a bit of shade or something, and it's game off, because 100% of the pitch has to be safe. So certainly as far as Notts are concerned, when they saw the pitch, it was never going to be on. It was never going to be on. And I think we've been to other games down the years, National League level at Dover. The moment you see the pitch, you know there's not a cat in hell's chance that the game's going to be played. But clubs have kind of kept everybody in the dark. So that's my understanding of it. My view would be here, and I feel every bit as bad, for instance, as Cheltenham as I do for Notts fans. Wimbledon is run by a trust supporters movement. So we all know Football Supporters Federation and all the rest of it will be on Grimsby's case, and it must be done properly, etc. Wimbledon should be, and they're run by a trust. They're no different to all these individual club owners or whatever. Clearly, clubs want the game on because it's a vital source of revenue. It's not in their interest. The moment they say pitch inspection, you know, and I know, you lose 500 off the gate because people, it's bound to be off. I think the league, like you've said, Stell, has to have some protocols and systems in place that on a Friday, remotest possible doubt, clubs have got to be honest. They're at the moment, we believe the pitch is playable, or there has to be an inspection, and there has to be a clear indication that there could be a pitch inspection the following morning. In Wimbledon's case, they came out about 11:30 and said there's a second pitch inspection at 12:30. Well, they're not even communicated there'd been one earlier, which I think is terrible to fans. Terrible to fans. And unless the league put a protocol in place on a Friday to say on a Friday you've got to communicate A, B, C, and D, and if the game ends up being called off and you've said nothing on a Friday, you get a fine. You know, make some incentives. But it does annoy me. And if you look perhaps at, you know, me and you've been around the block a long time, but if you look at people like Chloe, and there are all sorts of horror stories I've had from other people with families, people going on the train, leaving it on the 747 train, 100 fans on that train, people with families spending well over £100 on a day out for a game of football that they didn't need to do. They didn't need to do, and I do feel quite strongly about it. You know, there's Chloe driving all the way from Manchester there and back, not great weather. Very, very unfair, and I think the league have got to come out with something and tell clubs on a Friday they've got to be upfront and they've got to be transparent, even if that potentially means them losing a few fans who choose not to go if the game goes ahead. Whether they will, we'll wait and see. And I'll be totally honest here and try and be as transparent as I can be. Let's be honest, if we'd all gone down to Colchester and Colchester had put out at 11 o'clock in the morning, 2 panels had fallen off a scoreboard, right? How do you think we would have reacted to that game being postponed? And I know there are sets of circumstances. I think fans get very much the thin end of the stick, and the league needs to clamp down on this. Right, that's enough of that. Let's get on with a few comments, and we'll get on to some of the new signings. Let's have a quick look on the message boards. There's absolutely tons of you on there, so excuse me while I try and catch up with everything. Don't think we made any more signings in the last 20 minutes. Horror stories from Grimsby. Richard Elvian, we just entered the town centre when news broke. We had fish and chips on the beach. Still, fish and chips on the beach, 1 degree.
Yeah.
Cleethorpes.
Absolutely. Quality. That's what us English do, though, isn't it? It's what we do.
Took photos of the pitch, which looked perfect, but I guess it was underfoot that was the issue. 6-hour round trip. So 6 hours to have fish and chips on a beach in 1 degree temperature. Love it. Facing the North Sea. It's not even Cornwall, is it? Gazza Lee left Woodthorpe 9 o'clock in the morning, kept stopping and checking Facebook. No issues. Saw the post at 10:30, arrived and parked up. At 10:45 to be told by locals the game was off. Ended up at Dunelm Mill instead of Blundell Park. Oh dear. Right. Let's get a few thoughts. Robert Minister. Good morning, stroke evening from Australia. Very disappointing how the Grimsby pitch situation was handled to call off the match a little more than 90 minutes before the scheduled kickoff. So say all of us. We're coming on to the new signings. I'm just trying to focus on this. Ian Cooksey, Grimsby Youth Cup was waterlogged off last Monday. Freezing temperatures meant the water that was already in the pitch froze. Temperatures did not rise above 3 degrees all week in daytime, -5 to -6 at night. I think I don't necessarily want to absolve the communications department. I do have a bit of experience in these matters. Look, at the end of the day, the PR and the comms team do not arbitrarily write what they think the pitch looks like and what the chances are. They write and put out what they're told to by a senior executive in the club. So it'll be the club secretary, the chief exec, possibly the manager. So I don't think you can really shoot the comms team too much in terms of the actual message, how professionally it was done, and whether you could read it on the. I think that's fair. And the other thing I would perhaps say here, Stell, I wonder if there is still a little bit of residue from Grimsby to Notts when they beat us in the playoffs about 4 years ago in the National League, and we didn't give them a full allocation of tickets, i.e. we gave them 2,000 and there were 3,500 seats in the county area. I do detect a little undercurrent here, but the point is that it's the punters that are being basically stiffed here. And as you alluded to, because you've been in the game a long time, sometimes clubs will deliberately get games called off, allegedly, i.e. they've got 7 injuries, they don't want to play it, so the frost covers might not be properly rolled out and left behind 1 goal, therefore the guarantee a bit's frozen. And other times they desperately want it on and will do everything that they possibly can. And clearly Grimsby fall into the category if they were definitely trying to get the game on. Do you think we're close to a tipping point where a protocol comes in, or do you think this is going to happen every year and fans are continually, ultimately going to get stuffed?
Well, like I've said, I why there isn't a protocol in place already, I don't know. This is not new phenomena we're talking about. And again, you know, like I do, whether there's any residue left over from that ticketing thing from the playoff game a few years ago, who knows? But what you do know is in the professional game, it is quite feasible that a club, and this is not saying Grimsby, not saying about Saturday's example, that clubs will, I'll say deliberately, but will not want to impart information too soon. So if, for instance, if a team can travel, if a team can disrupt their training week thinking that there's a game when maybe the home team knows full well there perhaps isn't going to be a game, then it's not in their interest sometimes to let the other club know. So they'll let them travel, they'll let them stay, they'll do their training based on a game, and there is no game, it can disrupt a rival. You might think that, oh no, that won't. No, honestly, that's how the game can be. That is how cutthroat and cynical the game can be. And that's why, for me, the only real protocol that would have any sort of chance of working would be getting independent people, i.e. the officials, there either the night before a game. And this is, I know the leagues, well, that's extra cost and an extra hassle. Of course it is, but this is not 46 games of the season. How often do we have constantly freezing temperatures? So it might be for what, 3, 4, 5 times a season that this protocol is actually needed. But you can't, whatever it's in the hands of a club, if you like, the home club, to have a big say in whether the game is played or not, then it is open to any sort of advantage gained or not gained. And you're quite right to point out the one we had at Notts with the scoreboard bits coming off. If that was the other way round, we wouldn't be too happy at that. So again, it's got to be the only way to have it where there's a real trust in the situation, and like I say, you feel like the fans aren't getting shafted, is it's got to be an independent person there, an official or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it would be interesting to see whether the league would ever move to a point where there's ever the remotest possibility of a game being off, that the match referee has to be there on a Friday. Now, I don't quite know how many of them are full-time in the EFL, how many could do that. And instantly people will talk about having a local referee. And this is kind of like, you and me have been in the game still. So we know this goes on, despite what clubs will tell us. If you have a local referee, and that local referee is your mate, and that local referee happens to support your team, and, the club, do you want this on or off? I prefer it to be off. No, unplayable. And I know that's a terrible thing to have to say. And people go, oh, no, that doesn't happen. It certainly has happened over many years in football, Stallard, I can promise you. As you would well know. For me, you have to take out the vested interest of the home club and get some form of independence, which was kind of my sort of crude point, that if the visiting team is allowed to send somebody who can check the pitch, our guys presumably would have then said, well, this is a disgrace, there's no way you can play on it. And then fans start to have an understanding, hang on, it's definitely not going ahead. And you have a more transparent view. Because at the minute, you only get the view that the home club want you to get. That's it.
And just one thing, just a logistical thing with regards to Saturday. I don't know how long it takes to get frost covers off of a pitch. For the ground, there'll be groundsmen screaming at this, going, well, you don't know what you're talking about. It takes 3 hours to get the frost covers off. It's not as easy as doing that, But again, there's got to be some protocol in place to prevent this happening, whether it's, whatever that is, independence or whatever, whether the pitch has got to be fit on the Friday night. I don't know. The frost covers have got to come off, or whatever the situation is. There's got to be a way so that games are not being called off 2 hours before kickoff, or less than that in some circumstances, because again, it's costing fans a lot of money.
But here I think, Chloe, as a fan, this is where clubs kind of know they get away with it. So you've been to Fyle, haven't you, once or twice? That wasn't so far from you. Don't know if you did Dover. Don't know if you did Bradford last year. You've now done Grimsby. I think I've done all of them. But fundamentally, it doesn't stop the loyal fan from thinking, right, I'm going to have to go again, because all logic dictates that game was not going to be on. All logic says to you, it's never got above freezing, it's bound to be off. But you go, don't you? But you go. And if the situation arises again and you're not sure, I suspect you were the sort of person that would still travel, wouldn't you? Because your heart's saying, I really want this game and I don't want to miss it. And it's kind of taking advantage of that emotion that I think is the worst part of this.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be honest, I'm probably quite a good example to see it from both perspectives, because I'm in Manchester and based in the Northwest. Home games and away games are both normally a couple of hours away from me. So I've done it when I've travelled to a home game, and like you say, it's been called off more than once. I know that there's not many cases where we get home games called off. But again, it's happened a few times. Away away games as well. So, but like you say, that's kind of my point of what I was going to say is even if there was a little bit of doubt, there would still be a lot of fans that would still go, right, well, it's not until it's official, I'll start making my way, and you kind of accept it at that time. But I think when it's really disappointing is when there's either been no indication that it's going to be off. And like you say, Stell, like anything could kind of happen. I don't know at what point those tiles from the scoreboards fell down. It could have been the night before. It could have been an hour before. I mean, that storm happened for a few days on end. We don't know when that was. But when there's no indication at all as to we should maybe think about this, or the opposite in Grimsby's case, if they couldn't have been more confident and come out multiple different times through our own media channels and through theirs, not only the day before, but throughout the week, at that point, it becomes more frustrating. But like you say, there will be certain people like myself, I'm sure, like yourself as well, who will, if there is a chance of it being on, we will always go and make the effort. And then I kind of think that that's on us, and that's a decision that we've made. We've either made an educated guess or in just the hope that it's going to be on. But it is when you kind of feel a bit blindsided, either by the lack of information or the information that has been provided. So it is obviously a difficult situation. And again, we'll forget about this in a few months, but next December, January, February, even March sometimes, all of these come out again and you forget some of the games that you've been to multiple times. I mean, there's been a few away games. I haven't done them all, but there's definitely a few more than filed. And you just kind of remember. But again, the files thing, we went back, I think 3 times in the end, and we made the journey 3
Boxing
times.
Day. That was one that should never in a million years was going to even ever be played.
There's so many examples, and like Stow says, it's just frustrating that we're coming up with the same things every single year, and at least give fans some sort of an idea for them to make their own decision, especially with this game being on Sky Plus. I'm sure a lot of people would have gone, right, well, let's kind of take my chance, and at least I'll only lose out on my ticket money if it is on. Never mind all the kind of the travel, the expenses, and what you buy when you get there and things like that. And at least they can watch it at home. And obviously, if it's cold off, they can get their ticket money back. But like we say, we've all made different arrangements, and there will have been people that have travelled a lot further than I have, with the presumption that it's going to be on, and spent a hell of a lot of money on travel. And if you kind of added it up throughout the years, and like you say, it's not even about the money. Sometimes it's about a weekend that's kind of gone, and a lot of people will be Monday, Friday, 9 to 5, very similar to what I am. And you kind of make your weekend plans around the football fixtures and how long it's going to take you to get there. I mean, with me, obviously living away from our home games, that's a kind of a whole weekend, and you kind of jigsaw your life around these events, and then something like that happens, and that's kind of like most of your Saturday gone. For some people, they'd have stayed over there, so that's kind of like their weekend gone. And so I think that's the more frustrating thing. It's just feeling a bit blindsided. Obviously, money comes into it, but it's also the time. But it is a difficult one. And like you say, it's not just, this isn't aimed at Grimsby. We've got many examples that are not only us, but many other clubs up and down the country have also gone through, as well as us. We've called home games off as well. And there'll have been people that travel overnight for that, whether it be home fans, away fans. So yeah, it's just frustrating that we seem to have the same conversations every year.
Yeah, I mean, I think if the clubs are left to their own devices, nothing will change. Stell's point, my view, the league needs to take ownership of the issue and put some protocols and rules in place. And I think James Moore makes a good point here. He said, I'd say the deadline should be twice the length of the travel time for away fans for clubs to announce if the game is definitely on. If they cancel it after this time, then the club is fined. It needs to stop for the fans' sake. And yeah, ultimately, James, I totally agree with you. There needs to be some form of fine system. Clearly, clubs will protest, but I think you've got to kind of look a little bit at the bigger picture. Paul Huskerson, I remember watching games in the snow with an orange ball. Do you used to play with orange balls, Stella, or not in your day?
Yeah, I remember all that. Yeah, I remember playing on frozen pitches, and yeah, the orange ball came out when the snow came out. Yeah, done that a couple of times.
Ian Cooksey, I think Grimsby have done Stuart Maynard's job for him when the game is rearranged. Okay. So it's been a busy day, incomings and outgoings. So since we were last on the show, Steph, Will Jarvis signed shortly afterwards, 3-year contract from Hull. Today, Zach Johnson's been brought in from Sunderland. In the photograph with Stuart Maynard looks about 4'3", and Zach Johnson looks about 9'11". So he's a strapping centre half, young centre half. We've also literally just before coming on air, Charlie Whittaker from Everton. What are your thoughts on our transfer window so far? Do you think we're net beneficial so far, or obviously with losing Ness and Macari, where do you think we are so far?
Well, it's hard to tell, because these are these are players. I'm not one for sticking. Oh, great signings, because I haven't seen these lads play.
No.
I've not seen them play. So I did see a little clip of Will Jarvis as footage that was put on social media. When he was in Ireland, playing in Ireland. But the fact of the matter is, and I say this all the time, you have to wait and see. A player can have potential, and we know it in recent times at Notts, but it's happened throughout time. A player has had a decent career, signs for your club, and then all of a sudden it doesn't happen. Or conversely, somebody you're not particularly excited about signs, and they become an absolute star. So you've got to hold judgment, reserve judgment until a player's played, gets to know. Ironically, that the cancellation, the postponement at Grimsby for them lads will not be a bad thing. It'll give them time to bed in. Certainly, Will Jarvis was in that week, wasn't he? The other two lads will be in sort of as of today. But yeah, they've got time to bed in now before the Accrington game at the weekend. But look, everybody will give their opinion. Everybody will think they're Lionel Messi and Ronaldo and a combination of them all. The fact of the matter is, we hope they settle in well. We wish them all well, and we hope they come in and make an impact. Because you say, if that is right, Scott Robertson out probably till the end of the season, Lucas Ness out to the end of the season. I don't know about Lewis Macari. I haven't heard actual confirmation that he's out for the most of the season.
Yeah, I think when I've been checking, he's not out for the whole of the rest of the season, but he's out for a while. He ain't back.
Yeah.
Let's put it like that.
So they're big blows. We have suffered with injuries this season. We've had that in the first half of the season, and we've got it now. But this is a part and parcel of the game. It's why you have a squad. It's why Notts do, like all clubs, do as much research on players and have a database of players ready to go that they want to line up and get. And I'm just pleased that they've got the some of the business done as quickly as they possibly can. That's 3 players in this January window so far, and you don't know, there might still be 1 or 2 more to come. We don't know. But yeah, we wish them lads well. They'll have done their research on them. We hope, as we were speaking previously, we hope that the hit rate of success when it comes to recruitment continues. If it's a 50% hit rate, then hopefully that's not too bad.
Is there any danger, Stal, that we can put too much pressure on these young lads coming? I've taken pelters for my, Boris Johnson oven-ready players coming in League Two. You know the point I'm making. But, for Will, Zach, Charlie, someone produces a little montage of what they've done, so far, playing wherever they've played. And like you said, we're kind of like saying they're the next Messi, Ronaldo, Maradona rolled into one. The reality of the situation is it surely got to be a steep learning curve for them coming in to open age men's football at a stage of a season when we as a club are being expected to win games and push for automatic.
Yeah, of course. It's not about too much pressure. There's always pressure and expectation, or whatever word you want to put on it, on players coming in. You're coming in to perform, no matter what age you are, whether you're 19 or whether you're 35. You're expected to perform. Come and have an impact. Now, say you and your oven-ready players. You're talking about experienced players. You want experience, but I think everybody feels more secure if you get an experienced player, because there's a feeling of it's not so much of a gamble. As an untried maybe or a up and coming 19, 20-year-old who might be a little bit up and down in terms of consistency, still trying to find his feet, trying to find his way in the game. So I absolutely understand what you're saying. The other side of that can be you sign players that are, I think Will Jarvis is 22, isn't he? Zach Johnson, 19. I don't know about Charlie Whittaker, somewhere in that sort of age bracket. They've got a hunger to go and carve a career for themselves, and they've got to make it happen somewhere. And none of them have got any, not really. And Will Jarvis has got a little bit of experience, hasn't he, in the Championship and over in Ireland as well. But nothing you could call a career. So this is the next stepping stone, or the first stepping stone on the way, and they should be coming here with that hunger and desire that maybe a 30-year-old maybe hasn't got. Maybe they have a different mentality to it, a different sort of, say, drive, hunger, desire to actually go and achieve something. So look, there is no proven way of doing it to make it a success. But all you can go with is all the parameters and the metrics that they will have used to look at these lads and identify them and bring them in. And we certainly hope they all do well for Notts.
Excited by the new signings, Chloe?
Always excited to see new faces, especially, like we say, with our injuries this season. It was quite obvious a while ago, really, that we were going to have to do something in January. But it is just that really difficult period of the season. We haven't really seemed to be being big spenders, to be honest, since the brothers have come. And we're not really big sellers. Obviously, we had a bit of money come in for Williams, and then followed by Langstaff and a couple here and there. But I never expect a huge signing to come in January. Essentially, you're going to have to pay over the odds for somebody that you want, because if they're any good for another club, they're not going to give them up easily halfway through the season. So I was definitely expecting to see some new faces. I think Notts fans are normally, I think there's a 50-50 split, really. I think, especially in the last few years, and maybe 10 or so years, we've had some really exciting either loan players, young players. And like you say, there are certainly some of those that haven't kind of hit the ground running, absolutely. But if we look back, we've had Conor McGregor, Jack Grealish, Abbott this season, Yates, Grant, and a few others sprinkled in there. So we always kind of are looking out for these players and to see what they can do, because they are in these academies for a reason. But sometimes there's a reason why they haven't had any other experience anywhere else. So look, it's going to be interesting. Like Sal says, you can't really comment because you've not got a lot to go off. I know a lot of people will be disappointed in that it's not somebody that's proven and X, Y, and Z. Like I say, we won't be seen to pay over the odds for these players, not midway through the season. And you kind of look at other clubs and what's happening there. Obviously, Lowe's gone back to Stoke, I believe, from Walsall. So that'll be a big hit from them. So be interesting to see what they do. But the big thing for me is obviously the injuries. But I kind of look at Mansfield when they got promoted, and now they were riddled with injuries. I remember going to a Field Mill or the One Call Stadium or whatever it's called now and thinking this is probably our best chance. And I never, ever fancy us at that place. I don't think I've ever seen a positive result. But we kind of went and we was like, look, they've got loads of injuries. They've got some young lads, and they still managed to not only turn us over, but to still go up. So we've got to kind of be looking, especially in January, that these players, as much as we don't want to put too much pressure on them, it could be between us either getting a promotion place and not, or maybe even getting an automatic place and not. So we do need more to hit them than not, essentially. But yeah, I'm sure they'll be wanting to prove themselves and either get a move elsewhere from their home club, or to be recalled at the end of the season and start making a stamp there. Or if we have, obviously, like we say, we've got somebody on a 6-month deal, he's, I'm sure, going to be wanting to have a football shirt on his back next season, whether that be with us or with somebody else. And I think for me, the player of the season so far has been Abbott. He's been phenomenal. And when we either are playing him in what I think is his correct position, or when we're having a bad game, when we're having a good game, he sticks out every single game for me. So if we can find even one more like that, if we could have 11 Abbotts on the pitch at one time, I'm sure we wouldn't do too bad. So yeah, it's hard to comment on how they're going to step up, how they're going to affect our season. It'd be unfair to do so. But I'm always excited to see fresh faces, and we'll see how it goes.
Ian Cooks, he says, the last two signings from Sunderland, Patterson on loan and Bass, haven't done bad, have they? So hopefully Zach Johnson follows that trend. Senga Schmidt, Zach Johnson is Abbott class. Trust me. I am from the northeast. We will endeavour to trust you, Senga Schmidt. What else have we got on the transfer front? James Moore, I have read the 150 or so posts on Hull's Facebook page. Do you not have anything better to do with your life, James? And 90% were saying Will Jarvis was too good for League Two and he could play higher up. Sounds good. Look, we all get a bit carried away, and I tend to come into like a Stell sign of thing. You know, for me, I don't attach really any relevance to what they what a highlight reel does that's produced by their agent. I just hope we give them a little bit of time to shine, because clearly by definition they've not played a lot of open age EFL games. There has to be a transition period, and hopefully these guys can adapt very quickly and take it in their stride. I mean, we spoke before, Stel. January's it's a very interesting season in League Two. It's in all probability going to be a blanket finish across the 3 automatics and the 4 playoffs, contested by up to 14 or 15 clubs. We're already seeing clubs, Chloe's mentioned it, they've lost the goal scorer recalled by Mark Robbins to Stoke. Cook's been ruled out at Bradford for the season, although I do believe they're signing a few. It's going to be very interesting the next few weeks as to how much activity there's going to be. Are you expecting more on a Notts front than we've had already?
Well, I think there might be 1 or 2 more. There might be 1 or 2 more, given the news coming out about if Lewis McCarry's injury added on to Ness and Robertson out for the season. That's another longer term injury. So there might be 1 or 2 more. And obviously that Dan Crowley situation, that is massive. That is a massive situation for Notts. So if there is any truth to the rumour that he might be disappearing in January, which, like I say, is nothing more than a rumour. But if that is the case, then that is a serious gap that needs filling. So I would expect that to open up more incoming, if you like. So, but make no mistake, you've spoken about there, Chloe, you've mentioned dead right, Nathan Lowe going back to Stoke. So Walsall have lost the leading scorer, top of the table, leading scorer in the league. Andy Cook, perennial sort of 20 goal a season goal scorer for Bradford. He's out for the season. So a lot of clubs will be in this situation of having to replace players, and in the marketplace I've got to replace a striker, we've got to replace 15 goals, we've got to replace 20 goals, and they're all fishing in the same pond, if you like. And that can drive deals up, that can make clubs wait, they can bide their time a little bit. So it isn't easy to get the deals that you want. So again, Notts have got deals done relatively early in the window. They're hopefully happy with what they've got. I think there will still be maybe 1 or 2 more. We'll wait and see. But it's a difficult window. January really is a difficult window, because we've had it ourselves. We've got it with Dan Crowley. The players that are playing well and in demand, are they going to be here? Do you make plans with them or without them? You've got to have a backup plan, of course you have. But now other clubs are having that as well. All clubs near the top, and because this season is so open, then there might be 1 or 2 clubs that think, well, do you know what? We might just have a bit of a gamble, have another go at it, sign a few more players than maybe we thought we needed to have a real go, because it's like the door is ajar, isn't it? It feels like it. Walsall, yes, are well clear, but as we've said all season, for 12 or 13, 14 other clubs, if they've got the budget and the wherewithal to have a go and feel like they can get real quality in, it can absolutely change the season in the next 4 months, and it can change, the money coming into your club and everything about it. So it is a big transfer window, and it's not to be underestimated with how the league table looks at the minute.
From what we hear, both Will Jarvis and Charlie Whittaker would be attacking flair-minded, creative players. are you pleased to see that with Notts in the way that they move forward and fitting into a fabric of the way Notts play collectively?
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't surprise you at all, does it? With the way Notts play and they look to play and the model of how they've played for a number of years now, getting the ball on the deck, passing the ball, having young, technical, good technical players, dynamic players, but you've got to make sure that they're not soft touches. That's the one concern you always have with a good technical player. Can they withstand the rigors of football league, League Two football? And the good ones can, and the good ones develop and learn, and you have to, because if you don't, you fall by the wayside. But it doesn't surprise me at all that they're the sort of players that they've looked to bring in, because I think that is what will fit into the way Notts want to play. But of course, football isn't just about playing with the ball. You've got to be able to do a job when you're out of possession.
Okay, so this will probably date very quickly, but there is a lot of conjecture today, and I have no idea of the substance of this. That Dan Crowley is clearly being courted by other clubs, possibly could be on the verge of moving to Mansfield. We don't really know. His contract is up at the end of the season. I love some football fans. Dan Crowley, brilliant when he's injured. The only reason we've not won for 4 weeks is because Dan Crowley's not playing. The moment Dan Crowley is linked with going somewhere, we can bugger off there. We don't need him. We don't want to play for us. Get rid of him. He's played rubbish the last few games. I mean, look, for me, I think Dan Crowley leaving is a massive loss, a massive blow. Very difficult to replace a player of those capabilities. Look, if he's adamant he wants to move, and we don't know that he does, but if he does, hard to stop them, admittedly. But I think he would be a massive, massive loss. Where are you with the importance in terms of the debate about Dan Crowley to Notts?
Oh, as I say, yeah, absolutely agree. Massive loss. If he does go, I hope he stays. Hope he stays to the end of the season. Sometimes better the devil you know. He'll be in demand at the end of the season, certainly. And I hope he stays and sees the job through for Notts. And again, we've got the record of the brothers. They're not selling owners. But if somebody comes in and offers you money with somebody with 4 months of their contract left, that you think, well, that is actual money that we can't turn down. It is good for the club. Then I say we would always back them to make the best decision. But just purely from a footballing perspective, very, very difficult to replace Dan Crowley.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Chloe, you're already up in Manchester. Are you off to Accrington, Stanley?
I will be. I've been quite fortunate since we've actually got back into the league. Most of the away games are up here, never mind going to London and back every week. So it's not too far from me at all.
Yeah, I just hope the game's really on, because, I mean, if I remember right, their pitch is a bit exposed to the elements. And if it rains, you get wet behind the goal there, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm hoping the game does go ahead and they're knackered from that Liverpool game, because it's 3 points that we really could do with at the moment.
So there's no issue with you being so disenfranchised by clubs, conning people, for want of a better phrase, that this doesn't affect your commitment, desire, and I know it's a short trip, but I assume if you were in Nottingham, you'd still probably be going to Accrington.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said before, it's the same with the home games. Most of the time this season, to be honest, the home games have been a further trek than the away games have. But like you say, even if there was some kind of slight indication, we don't think it's going to be going ahead until it's down as a fact. Then I'll be making that journey one way or another.
Yeah, Accrington. I don't mind going to Accrington, Stell. I mean, it's for me, it's always very kind of earthy, isn't it? I think last year I got a pie and chips outside that pub from this temporary van thing. It was like about £3.30 or something. It's got its own financial microclimate, So it's good. It's good.
Yeah, earthy is one description of it. I always remember Accrington as a player going there years ago, the worst changing facilities, changing rooms in the Football League. But that said, they've got a fantastic corporate extension now on one of the stand. It is still a fairly rudimentary, small sort of ground, uncovered away end. Yes, but they've got a great big hospitality suite, if you like, down one side of the pitch. And I think they have redeveloped the changing room, so they're not as Spartan as they were, sparse as they were. But yeah, Accrington is one of them places, just one of them places where you're going to have a tough game, because it's they're not rolling the red carpet out. It's not like going to a fantastic stadium like coming to Meadow Lane where the pitch is going to be perfect. It's not going to be like that. It's a tight sort of ground. Everybody's close to you. You're going to hear them Accrington fans with everything they've got to say. You might hear the Notts fans as well. And hopefully that they're going to be singing something good. But you've got to dig in for a game. It's going to be a battle. It's not going to be, you're not going to have time to get your foot on the ball and spray it around and look, $1 million. You expect to go there and have a battle.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the changing rooms. We got beat there a midweek. I don't know if you were doing the commentaries then. And it was the closing of the reign of either Jamie Fullerton or John Sheridan. I think it might have been Fullerton. And like you say, that it's like a little, not a porter cabin, but it kind of like backs onto the outside. And I'm walking past the ground on my way home. And then you can hear, I think it was Fullerton, I can't remember the film where it's F F F F F, and you can hear this. You can hear Fullerton as so clearly. So I stopped along with a load of other fans, and so you like this. Listen, the noise is coming out the top of the skylight of the dressing room, and you can just hear this non-stop tirade. You've effing this, you cost my effing job, you effing lot. And this tirade went on for about, and it was, you shouldn't really laugh, I know, but if just with you saying the changing rooms there, in agricultural, earthy,
Well, that's it. I mean, I was there, the Jamie Fullerton era and doing it. And I've been in enough dressing rooms to know that it's like that. And there's enough footage out there to Neil Warnock's and people like that of dressing room rants and see what it goes on. Yeah, that's the sort of industrial language you get used to when things aren't going well. But yeah, it's an eye opener when you say you can walk past and hear every word that the manager's screaming at the players. Yeah.
Yeah. Chloe, yeah, I mean, we've almost kind of like took our eyes off the league table. Very few games, no real damage done at the weekend other than Walsall winning again. Crikey, what a remarkable run they're on at the minute. Where are you in terms of ambition this year? Because, Stell and I possibly slightly disagree. Are you kind of top seven's fine? Or are you, as some people might say, want to be a little bit greedy and saying this really is the year for top three?
Yeah, I mean, it's a frustrating one given how open the league is. But given that, I would probably say top seven. Absolutely, I'd want that top three. But I think how I've kind of seen the league so far and what I think can happen for the rest of the season is just so up in the air. Anybody from, like you say, about 14th can go on any sort of run. And it won't even be, I don't even think you even need to start getting a run together until the end of February sometimes, maybe even just after that. Obviously, if you're going to lose every game before then, you're in without a shadow of a doubt of not reaching the playoffs. However, if you can get some good results kind of formatting before then, and we've seen random teams grab a last minute playoff place and either then go up, whereas there's been teams that have been in and around those playoffs all season and they're the ones that miss out. It's a really interesting one, and I'm sure we'd have had a similar conversation about this when we were in the National League. But obviously that's a little bit different with just the one automatic place. I think realistically, looking at our squad and how we've played so far and injuries and things like that, I think it'd be hard to expect anything more. But I think there's not just yourselves that you've got to look at. I think by this point, you are looking at other results, and we have been very fortunate up until this point that when we've lost out, a lot of other teams have, and there's been a lot of leapfrogging, and results are massively affecting everybody else, and that's why there's not really, apart from Walsall, been anyone to claw that gap. And like I say, every time I kind of seem to go to a Notts game, it's like, right, we might be on the back of a loss or not a great performance, especially when I'm going to a home game, and we kind of always look at the league table and think, right, well, if we pick up 3 points today, there could be a gap forming there, and we expect X to lose to Z, and you kind of come out of that game after either we've lost it and been like, well, actually, it wasn't so bad, and most other teams also drop points, or the other way round of that's a 3 points that we really could have done with picking up. But yeah, I mean, we've had a bit of a topsy-turvy season as it's gone. So I think to expect us to now go on this really good run of form until the end of the season and expect that top 3, I don't know if it's a little bit far out of my sights. Do I think we can grab one? Absolutely. And like I say, that there will be a lot of expectation on these lads that are coming in, and hopefully a few more. But yeah, I think top 7 I'd be happy with.
Okay, just to square away the Crowley debate, Ian G says, DC leaving would definitely add a curved ball to our promotion push. Dale Pikett, why would we sell him? We would only get peanuts for him and he could help us to promotion, which could be worth £1 million. Ian G, progress would be deemed as playoffs by most level-headed fans. And Steph Milek, in terms of, I'm not sure if this is level-headed or not. Evening, I'm dreaming of Macca coming back on loan. Oh dear. Look, you know, cards on the table still. I am a tough taskmaster. For me, I think anything other than top 3, I would be disappointed. I think you would perhaps not necessarily be setting or not viewing it in quite those terms, would you?
Well, I'd say disappointed because I think they're good enough to get there.
Yeah, well,
still be good, but I'm not saying 4th to 7th is a failure. You know, I'm not. That's what I'm saying. I think as long as they are in that top 7, then that's acceptable. But I think there's definitely ambition and ability there to get in the top 3. Again, you look at the league table, Salford, we were speaking about it last week, weren't we? Walsall had gone some 6-7 games or something, not conceding a goal, winning every game. Salford have done the same since playing us up until playing Man City, which is a little bit different, but they'd not conceded a goal in 6 games. Won 6 on the spin, not conceded a goal in the league. Now, obviously, FA Cup, they concede 8 to Man City. Obviously, they were taking it easy against them. But yeah, Salford are on a run where they haven't conceded a goal in 6 consecutive games, and they take that. I don't know who they've got in their next game, but that's what Notts. You're not telling me Salford can do it, Walsall can do it, but there's no chance Notts doing it. That's what Notts have got to look at, and if Notts can string that sort of run, I'm not saying maybe not conceding a goal, but winning 6 on the spin, which they're perfectly capable of doing. They've won 4 on a spin previously. They've got 3 on the spin recently. You know, it takes that sort of run, and all of a sudden, everybody's going, yeah, top 3 will be a disappointment if they miss out on it. But again, it's easy to talk about. It's easy to sit here. And the other side of the coin is again to say, well, top 3 is there for the taking. It's also there for the taking for about a dozen other clubs as well, who will all believe it. So, you know, we want Notts to do it. Of course we do. But every fan of every club will have a partisan view that it should be their club. You've got no divine right. You have to go and earn it, as we all know. And this is it now. Everyone's scrambling, but everyone's trying to strengthen their hand as much as they can in January to give them the best chance of going on that push to get, you know, what you would imagine is one of the 2 available slots alongside Walsall. Not saying Walsall are going to win the league, but you would fancy that. I think everybody would say that one of the, if they don't get top 3, they really have blown it. But, you know, the other 2 places are certainly up for grabs, and Notts are right at the pinnacle of any of the other teams that are really serious contenders for it. But they've got to go and prove it.
Be interesting if the 8-0 defeat derails Salford, says Ian G. It's happened before. Doncaster put a run in last season to get playoffs from nowhere. Indeed, they did. Kay says, if we want the top 3, Crowley needs to stay. Callum W, I would take 3rd. Ian Cooksey, never mind top 3 or top 7. We need 10 points to be safe, then take it from there. There speaketh the man of my generation. With Jimmy Cyril, would always talk about the first target. In those days, it used to be about 46 points and 46 games to stay up, one step at a time. I think we'll try and wrap up on time tonight. I appreciate we started a little bit late, what with all the incomings. My thanks, as always, to our official partners, the Big Shed at the Trent Navigation, and also to JH Accountants. Next week, don't forget, Stell, you need to get the dartboard out in that little corner behind you. Dan Dawson, Notts County fan from Kirkby and Ashfield, not many people know that, is joining us on the show. Talk about his interest and passion for Notts County, and we're going to try and persuade him to get some promotional work done with Notts' players rather than Forest players, because they have the big that TV thing, I don't know, Sky League, don't they? Coming, and it's coming to the Motor Point Arena or whatever it's called in Nottingham in the not too distant future. So we're going to try and set something up with some of the Notts lads and Dan and all the rest of it. So Chloe, thank you ever so much indeed for joining us tonight. Hope you've thawed out, hope you enjoyed the KFC, and we'll see you at Accrington. Stell, thank you very much as always. Are you going overnight to Accrington, Stell, or not, or just going on the day?
No, just on the day. It's not too far from me. I'm part way up here, on a little bit further north than you. So no, on the day, looking forward to it, and we hope that the game goes ahead and the weather's kind.
Yeah. So is it Mr. Bracegirdle?
It is, yeah. Dave and me will be doing it on Saturday, and hoping to bring all 3 points back with everybody, and safe travels to everybody else.
Indeed. Safe travels to everyone. Thank you for your participation and all your messaging tonight to our partners. We'll be back with Dan Dawson next week. Oh, by the way, a final epitaph. I lost my ticket on the morning of the game at Grimsby. I stuck a note out and I was inundated with Notts fans offering me a spare ticket. Needn't have bothered, but never mind. But thank you to all those that replied and offered me a ticket. Unfortunately, the good news, I found it in the side of the car compartment today that I must have looked through about 50 times and couldn't see it, but I found it today. So thank you very much to everyone, and we'll see you all next week. Cheers for now.